All right, so Time Magazine still is pushing this Ron Paul is in cahoots with Mitt Romney thing. And maybe he is hoping that Romney will name his boy to be vice president. But the thing is, the Ron Paulians, most of us, don't like Rand Paul. Rand Paul appeals to Republicans because he's nothing like his dad. First of all, he's horrible on the Iran war. So that's enough that he ought to be thrown off of something so tall that all his bones break when he lands. He is a horrible, terrible person. It's arguable whether he's a human being at all. What sort of son of a bitch is bad on Iran? Who does he think he is? David Frum? Well, you know what's interesting is when I went shopping for this turtleneck, I found some really good reasons of why we ought to have a war with Iran. Yeah, I'm way more reasonable than my dad. And you know what's interesting is that if Ron Paul somehow makes some deal with Mitt Romney, that he'll try to give his people to Romney in exchange for Romney making Rand Paul the vice president, he'd only get screwed on it anyway. They're not going to make Rand Paul the vice president. And even if they did, Ron Paul's people aren't going to vote for Mitt Romney. If he made Ron Paul the vice president, I think most of Ron Paul's people would not vote for Mitt Romney still, with Ron himself as the running mate. With the son who inspires no love whatsoever from the people who love Ron Paul because he shares none of the good qualities of his father that we all like so much, then that's not going to accomplish anything anyway. And I think Ron Paul knows that. And I think Time Magazine is full of it. And, well, here's what they're not full of, right? This quote may be true. Says one Paul advisor, if you're talking about putting Rand on the ticket, of course, that would be worth delivering our people to Romney. Yeah, but how are you going to deliver your people to Romney? Jesse Benton, his campaign chairman, says that, Jesus, the Texas representative might also be enticed by the prospect of serving as presidential advisor, a cabinet position for someone in his orbit, or perhaps a vice presidency, not for himself, but rather his son. Well, Jesse Benton, as everyone who loves Ron Paul knows, is a horrible, terrible person who married himself into Ron Paul's family so that he cannot be fired, and is in it for his own good. But what he doesn't seem to understand, because he's so up to his eyeballs in these electoral politics, is that Mitt Romney is horrible on everything. And the people who like Ron Paul, they like him because he's nothing like Mitt Romney. Oh, if only he could get a job as advisor to Mitt Romney, then Ron Paul is just going to roll right over for that, huh? I don't believe that. And I don't believe that Ron Paul told Jesse Benton to say that either. And I think it's likely that Jesse Benton is also the anonymous Paul advisor who says, oh yeah, well, that would definitely be worth delivering our people to Romney. I don't think it's going to work.
I don't either.
Not one bit. And I don't think that Ron Paul is dumb enough or evil enough to participate in such shenanigans. Although I gotta wonder if there's one big flaw with Ron Paul, it's not his position that there should be a southern border rather than just private property lines in America, or there should be a national government at all, which I vehemently disagree with him about. No, his biggest flaw is not firing people that he should have fired a long time ago. He should have fired Eric Dondero. He should have never hired him in the first place. He should have fired him as soon as he hired him. Instead, he kept him for years. And then made Dondero one of his biggest enemies, going around smearing him all the time as his full-time job. And this Benton guy is the guy who ruined the campaign last time. You know, what was the Ron Paul revolution? Was it a bunch of right-wing Republicans? No. It was the young. It was people who weren't conservative. They were classically liberal. And they were against war. And they were for individualism and liberty, which ain't conservatism, and which ain't crusty old country club millionaire types in their 60s and 70s. Police pensioners and a bunch of Republican voters. And yet who'd they run all their campaign ads for? For those people. And what are they doing this time, too, with the campaign ads? Here you have Ron Paul has inspired a cult-like following due to his unique character. He's a better man than the rest of the entire Congress, by far. And it's the principles that he stands for and the way that he stands up for them. And he's a humble old guy, and he stumbles and he stutters, and he's not Martin Luther King up there with the great oratory, because it never was about his tone of voice. It's about what he says. And you can sit there and watch him stumble and stutter through a speech on the House floor and know that it's one of the best political speeches given ever in the history of mankind, or at least, parliamentary bodies anyway. So, how do you run him for president? If you're running him for president, you run him as Ron Paul, the one who's not like the others. Not Ron Paul, he was in the military. Ron Paul, he knows military issues better than other people. No, Ron Paul, the guy that voted against the Iraq War and gave you 30 reasons why he was voting against it, and all of them were right. The guy who predicted everything you were going to do wrong with your stupid Republican and Democrat policies in the 21st century, and warned you not to do them, and warned you what would happen if you did them. And is now proposing the solutions to all the problems that you caused, that he was predicting you would cause. And there you go. Why do young people love Ron Paul? Because they hear him give speeches. They watch him on YouTube, and they go, wow, this guy's not a liar. And they watch old clips of him back when his hair was still brown, and they go, wow, this guy was right about the same thing way back in the day. So, bold idea. How about for his commercials, you run clips of Ron Paul saying stuff? The thing that made everybody love him.
And the reactions of the people that love him.
No, you know what? Let's do another flash animation about how Ron Paul is like a pickup truck. Ron Paul, he's like a pickup truck. Maybe we can get the party platform adjusted, and that'll make Jesse Benton more money in his future. It is time for all people who love Ron Paul in America to declare war on Jesse Benton. We need a remove Jesse Benton, a fire Jesse Benton campaign to start right now. Do you love Ron Paul? All right, I'm Scott. How's it going? So I went off half-cocked and pissed off. And I put on my Facebook page that if you love Ron Paul, then you have to do your part to see Jesse Benton fired from the campaign before he destroys everything. What did he do? Well, click the link and read with your eyes, and then you'll know better. And you know what? If it wasn't Jesse Benton putting forward, and there was another quote the other day where that Justin Raimondo quoted about, oh yeah, we might be able to, get a part of the Republican Party platform changed a little bit. So what? When did they ever talk about their party, obey their party platform on anything? What does that have to do with anything? You're going to try to turn all of Ron Paul supporters into Romney supporters, which can't work anyway, because we're not the top-down follower types, Jesse. But anyway, you're going to turn us all to support Mitt Romney? to Mitt Romney supporters, if we could get the platform changed, something tells me he's just pushing for a job interview as campaign manager for somebody else some other time in the future.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Maybe he gets rich somehow.
I don't like that guy. I don't trust that guy. He makes my spidey sense tingle.
Yeah, ain't no good, man. Hey, what's wrong with this? How come your level's so low, man? Speak up!
Is that better?
A little.
A little bit?
Yeah. You got your chat room open over there, buddy?
I do.
All right, well, so then here's what we'll do. There's Zoe, and then here we go. I'll send you this message here. Try that, would you? All right. Yep, so I'm Scott. There's got to be a war in the Ron Paul campaign before it's too late, man. Ron Paul is running on his real record, and if you look at his real record in the House of Representatives, all the votes he ever cast, the speeches he's given, the stands he's taken, to see him sold out by the likes of his own campaign manager like this, putting forward these feelers saying, oh, no, we're not in a conspiracy with Mitt Romney, but we want to be. Really? And here's where this started, right? Where this started was everybody knew going into this thing that Mitt Romney is the man to beat. Mitt Romney has billionaires behind him. Mitt Romney has a personal bank account of $200 million. Mitt Romney is the rich white guy who ran last time and is the establishment choice and is the man to beat in this thing. He's also the liberal, the flipper-flopper, the moderate governor of Massachusetts. And so it was the entire primary battle has been for who gets to be the one in the two-man race who gets to go up against Romney. So, of course, Ron Paul has not been focusing on Romney. He's been focusing on the other candidates in the hopes of being the other one, which obviously has failed, not in small part due to the efforts of Jesse Benton running the campaign in the first place, but now it looks more and more like Paul and Gingrich are in the back seat, and Santorum, Rick Santorum of all people, which just goes to show you not to let the media choose your candidates for you. Boy, were they wrong about him. He's now the alternative to Mitt Romney. But the point being that doesn't mean that Ron Paul's in cahoots with Mitt Romney just because he didn't focus on him. He was trying to get rid of the rest of his competition so that for the long haul, he could be the alternative candidate. Didn't work, but that was obviously what was going on. Now his own campaign manager is telling Time magazine, well, we want to be in a conspiracy with Mitt Romney. Oh yeah, if you could get Rand Paul the vice presidency or maybe a cabinet position, Justin Raimondo mocked it. Oh yeah, Rand Paul for transportation secretary. Wouldn't that be the ultimate culmination of the Ron Paul revolution, huh? Now here's Ron Paul after all this being sold out by his own campaign manager. And I'm with Justin on this. I think he needs to go ahead and quit the Republican Party now, which is obviously just made up of a bunch of old people who want to rip off the young at gunpoint, and he ought to run as a libertarian. And in that way, all those liberals and lefties and civil libertarians and anti-war people who couldn't possibly, even plugging their nose, vote in a Republican primary can actually vote for Ron Paul. And then that'll also put all the pressure, or at least relieve some of the pro-war pressure on Barack Obama, who, if he's running against Romney or Santorum, obviously is going to have to say, I will too nuke Iran and all this kind of stuff and run to the right on foreign policy. If he's got Ron Paul running as a third-party candidate, then that will, he'll have to triangulate that a little bit and stick with his very reasonable and pragmatic, let's not go to war quite yet position, which I'm willing to settle for, thank you. But anyway.